So I broke my phone just like I had predicted, unfortunately. But this video is not about the broken phone. I will be doing a comparison video between the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro. Well, the broken Pixel 6 Pro. If this is your first time joining us on this channel, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and also the bell icon down in the notification icon below. And you get notified when we drop some of our awesome content. Let's dive right into the review or the comparison of these two awesome phones. Starting out, we're going to talk about the price. Now, this phone starts out at the $799 price tag, while the Pixel 6 Pro starts out at $1179. Now, that difference, it's significant, I know, but there's some major differences between both phones that justify that price difference. Now, let's talk about the physical difference between the phone. Very obvious, and for starters, is the screen size. The Pixel 6 is a 6.4-inch OLED display phone compared to the 6.7 of the Pixel 6 Pro. Now, that comes at a price as well, because I find that the 6 is actually more, maneuverable and portable in terms of daily use cases, right? I find out that it easily slides into my pocket, and I'm able to, put it in my pocket for longer periods of time without feeling like it's actually restricting my movement or impinging on my body. But the 6 Pro, it was a completely different case. This thing sticks out like a sore thumb. It's bulging in my pocket, and I can't even sit down with this phone in my pocket. It actually is quite obtrusive. I put it in my pocket, I can't sit down, and I feel like I'm going to smash the phone. Unfortunately, the other option, which was to always hold the phone, didn't work out well for me, because I ended up dropping the phone while I was holding it, and that shattered the entire back piece of the phone. Fortunately for me, I did get the protection plan on the phone, so I'm kind of covered. So it costs $11 monthly, and I'll get up to 6 fixes or repairs to the phone regardless of whatever happens to the phone, which is actually a great option, especially if you're considering getting this phone. You should definitely consider getting a protection plan, or at the very least get a case and screen protector, wrap this thing up in a bubble, make sure that cover it up as much as you can, because the so-called Gorilla Glass and whatever they talked about as being much more stronger didn't actually work in this case, because they actually smashed and broke to pieces. So make sure you get the protection plan. I'll drop a link down in the comment section to kind of let you know, so you can actually review the protection plan and what it covers. So make sure you consider that as well when you're buying this phone. Now let's talk about the next thing, the next difference between these two phones, which is the camera at the front. Now, the Pixel 6 does have the 8 megapixel camera with 84 degrees field of vision, and the Pixel 6 Pro comes with an 11.1 megapixel camera with a 94 degrees field of vision. Basically, what that implies or translates to in reality is, say you and your friends are trying to take a group selfie with the Pixel 6 Pro, it captures less people. With the Pixel 6 actually, it captures less people. 6 Pro, you can actually capture more people because it actually has that 94 degrees field of vision. But in my testing, I did find out that the picture quality, or maybe the display quality or whatever, was much better on the 6 than it was on the 6 Pro. It actually was more crisp and more clearer. I'm not sure if the 6 was actually applying some sort of filter, while the 6 Pro is actually giving you more like a realistic representation of what's happening. I'm not sure, but yeah, it did look better on the 6, which is quite ironic considering the fact that it actually has just the lesser megapixel camera compared to the Pro. So that's just one thing to take note of, right? Another thing that is the major difference between these two phones is at the back of the phone, which is the camera. You can see that the Pixel 6 has that telephoto lens, but that is absent on the Pixel 6. The Pro comes with that 48 megapixel telephoto lens, which is very impressive. It can zoom as much as 20 times, which means that you can capture things that are so far off and still be able to retain the details of the image, right? I was doing a test. I was sitting down in IOP and I was capturing the logo or the signboard of the KFC across the street, and this Pixel 6 Pro was able to retain all of the details. The 6 could not even get that far. It maxed out at x4, 4 times zoom. So that telephoto lens, I'll say, at least for me, I think it's a deal breaker. I want a phone that's able to zoom that far off, because it's impressive how much of the detail it retains and how much it still keeps in focus, right? So, but for someone that doesn't really, is not into taking pictures or videos or all that kind of stuff on their phone, I think the 6 is still a very good option or a good alternative, considering the fact that, I mean, it has the same exact ultra wide and wide 12 megapixel and 48 megapixel camera on the rear. Same thing as the one on the Pixel Pro. So you're not gonna be missing out except for that telephoto lens, which is the only difference between the two in terms of the rear cameras. Now, moving on to the other physical difference between this phone, it is the trim on both phones. Now, the Pixel 6 has this, the OLED display actually wraps around into the aluminum trim around the edge, which kind of makes it a little bit more premium and looks nicer and feels more high quality grade compared to the flat design for the Pixel 6, which is that, and it's just that flat design edge with the black plasticky piece around the edge as well, which kind of, you know, I'm not a big fan of that plastic piece. It kind of makes it feel like one of those like the older Pixel phones, right? It's yeah, feels like an older design, doesn't feel very modern to me, and I would have really loved to see that aluminum piece on there to kind of make it feel a little bit more premium, right? But if you're gonna get a case anyways for both phones, the trim is not gonna matter because the case is gonna cover up that phone anyways. If you're gonna get a case, even if you do get the the clear case, you're not gonna feel the body of the phone, so you're gonna be feeling the case. So at this point, you're gonna be investing into a better case than worrying about the physical traits of the phone itself. Now let's move on to the screen. Now this phone actually comes with a full HD display of 1080p by 2132, while this is a UHD, that's ultra high definition, with 1440 by 3120 resolution with 120 Hz refresh rate, while this has up to 90 Hz refresh rate. For the average user, what that translates to is that you're not gonna see any significant difference between the 90 Hz and the 120 Hz, except you are an avid gamer playing a first-person shooter game, because where the refresh rate comes in is that it's able to refresh that screen a lot faster per second compared to this one. So you're playing a first-person shooter, the character moves, right? If you have a lower refresh rate, it will take a longer time for your display to show that that character has moved compared to the higher refresh rate. So if you're playing against someone with the higher resolution display, the person will see your new position faster and be able to shoot you and kill you before you can actually respond or do anything, because yours will still be showing the old location of that character. So that's basically where the refresh rate comes in. Most 4K content are still 60 frames per second, so you're not going to see anything different in terms of the your content that you're going to view on the phone. So refresh rate shouldn't be a basis for you to choose between both phones, because it is going to be insignificant or negligible when it comes to both phones, in my opinion though. So that is another difference between both phones, the looks of the phone. Next, we're going to talk about the battery size on this thing. This one's got a 4,000 just over 4,000 milliamp hours, while this one is 5,000 milliamp hour, but it still comes down to the exact same battery life, 48 hours on both of them on super battery saver mode, because I mean this one has that massive display, which means you need a little bit more battery to be able to make up for to get the same life as you would on the smaller phone. But besides that, yeah, it doesn't make it, I don't think this would affect your purchase decision, because you will get the same battery life out of both phones regardless of the battery size. Which takes me down to the technical specification of this phone, which is the capacity. Now this actually comes in, you can only get this at up to 8 gig RAM space, but this you can get it up to 12 gig. For the average user, I don't think this will make any difference between the 8 and the 12. In fact, if you're getting the 6 Pro, you can save a little bit more money and just get a little bit of lower memory. I would recommend that, because most people would never get up to that 12 gig anyways, or even utilize most of it. So you're just basically paying for the numbers, not the actual usage of it. So save yourself that money and don't get caught up in the numbers, and just be practical about it instead. Getting 12 gig is not practical for most people, so get something that you would actually use instead of just getting it for the big numbers. All right, that pretty much wraps up my comparison of the 6 and the 6 Pro. And I think whatever option you decide to go with, it is going to be a fantastic choice, right? Whether you are going with the 6 because of the screen size, right? Or you go with the 6 Pro because you want that extra display or the telephoto lens, right? You can't really go wrong on either of the phones. Their prices are pretty impressive. You know, you can't really find any other phone on the market that can give you that kind of value to price, you know, that value to price, right? So feel free to go with either of the phones. And you know, for me personally, I'll be opting with the Pro especially because of that telephoto lens. And I do love big screens. I love big display as well. So even though I have smashed and I'm more prone to breaking my big phones, it still would not deter me from going with the bigger phone. I'll just make sure that I get coverage and protection on my phone, and probably order myself some screen protectors and casing for this thing to kind of beef it up and make sure that it's better protected, because I might be dropping it a lot more. All right, thank you guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.